Hi, everybody. David Dilling from Markzware. Today we have a very special guest here on the line on the Skype, Harvey Levenson. Harvey, how are you?
Good.
Right. And Harvey's been in the business for years. I've seen him around at Seabolds and all kind of other shows, and he knows a lot about pre-flighting and flight check and all that type of stuff. So before we dive into all that, maybe Harvey, you could tell us who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. Well, I am an emeritus professor at Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo, California. Cal Poly is the premier university amongst the 23 in the state system, which is the largest system in the United States. I was professor and department head for 30 years straight, nonstop at Cal Poly. And during those years, I did a lot of work with industry. Cal Poly is a hands-on university. We have 33,000 square feet of graphic communication laboratories. Okay. And industry would often come to us for advice, consulting, for learning, testing, research, and so forth and so on. And I headed that entire operation. And I came there from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I was the chair of the Department of Graphics, Design, and Communication at what's now LaRoche University. And I spent about 7 or 8 years there. I built the program. They hired me to start a printing graphic program. And the Cal Poly opportunity then came up, and I thought that might be a nice change from Pittsburgh to San Luis Obispo,
Change of scenery.
particularly in the wintertime.
Yeah.
But I came out of industry. I used to work, I was the associate director of technical services for what was then the Graphic Arts Technical Foundation. Traveling all over the country and the world, doing consulting, assisting printers and related companies with issues and problems and this sort of thing. A lot of the problems had to do with pre-flighting or the lack of it.
Yeah.
And I was able to assist in that sense. And prior to that, I started my career in New York City, working in the print advertising field and photography field. I was sort of a copy preparation artist for EJ Corvettes, which used to be a very large department store chain. We did a lot of newspaper ads. And then I went on to an advertising agency where I was an art director for an agency that specialized in the jewelry shoot. And I also had a position at a commercial photographer in New York City, doing copy preparation, a lot of pre-press and this sort of thing. So and that's the way it came up. Now, while I'm emeritus at Cal Poly, I'm not retired from the industry. In fact, I have my own company. I have an expert witness firm, which is very active, very vibrant. And I specialize on intellectual property, patents, copyrights, trademarks, trade secrets, and technology, all associated with printing, graphic communication, graphic arts, and this sort of thing, hardware, software, etc. So that's my background.
Oh, wow. That is amazing, Harvey, and still going strong. Yeah, that's really interesting. I was born out there in Altoona, Pennsylvania, so I know Pittsburgh a bit, but very, very rich history and experience. Just amazing. So,
I'm still a Steelers fan.
oh yeah, it's hard to. Well, Steelers are popular, weren't they? Was Iron Curtain? Was it called back then?
I lived through the first 4 Super Bowls.
Wow, Bradshaw and
That's right.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Frank Harris.
yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. We're showing our age now.
I enjoyed Pittsburgh very much. I liked living
Yeah, interesting. Good people. Um,
there.
okay, thank you, Harvey. Okay, well, thank you very much for the background. Do you remember or how you might have learned first about Markzware back when?
Yes. That would be the early 1990s, I believe. But real about Markzware from day one. I mean, as soon as the first announcement came out about Markzware being developed, that was my job to know these things, be right on top of what's happening in the industry, in the profession.
Right.
So basically, I knew about that company, when they started, but also I became much more intimately familiar with it when two things occurred. One, they provided my department Hollywood software.
Yep.
To experiment, to try out, teach students about. And then also I kind of assisted Markzware with had a little issue. I was an expert witness in a matter that they had to deal with, and I assisted them with that.
Right. I think it was the pre-flighting patent that Patrick and Ron discovered and were awarded. So interesting. Yeah, thank you.
It was a patent case. That's correct. But I know Patrick and Ortiz, very gay, many, many years.
Mary Gay says hello, by the way, Patrick, too, of course.
Thank you.
Okay, let's dive now into the pre-flighting side. What's interesting is I always remember back at, I think it was 1998, I had the old graphic. There was a GATF top 10 pre-flight errors infographic. And what's funny, if you look at that today, so, almost 30 to 20 years further, the problems are basically the same. Okay, missing font is now also non-embedded font and that type of stuff, a little bit different. But it's amazing the same errors are still here today as yesterday, although...
It's amazing. Like, I'm amazed when I see that.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it being that way, but it is that way. And that's to do with really the lack of preparation, people who are getting involved in the workflow. And it all starts with the creatives.
Yeah.
So we'll get into
that, right? Because the first thing I wanted to know actually was, what's your because everyone has like different definitions of pre-flighting. What's your definition of pre-flighting?
Very simply, checking, verifying, and ensuring that specific requirements and standards are being met, are being addressed. That would be a simple definition.
That's right. Yeah, very good. Good way to put it. Good definition. Before we jump into the creative side, what's the importance of pre-flighting for the printers?
For the printers, it's a matter of surviving or not surviving. Now, let me break into it this way. A couple anecdotes. Printing is often thought of as a necessary evil. Okay, by that I mean printing, particularly commercial printing, advertising printing, brochure printing, and this sort of thing. It's the kind of thing that's needed, but print buyers wish they didn't need it.
Yeah.
And so they look at it as a necessary evil. Okay. And when something is looked upon as a necessary evil, client, print buyer in this case, they want it at the lowest price, highest quality, and as quickly as possible. And I'll tell you, in the printing workflow, any step backwards because of an error costs time and money. And it usually means the difference between being profitable on a job or not being profitable, losing money on a job. So the idea is to do a workflow where there's no going backwards. Every step is done properly along the way. That's the only way commercial printing, which is a very low profit margin segment of the industry, that's the only way commercial printers can really be profitable. And there's an interesting little anecdote about the printing industry. So this print buyer, someone wants something, they go into a printer and they say to the printer, I want 2,000 4-color brochures printed, bound, delivered. Printer says, well, what the heck? Well, when do you want to buy? And the buyer says, customers are, why do you want to order? I want it today. If I want it tomorrow, I'd come in tomorrow. If I want it next week, I'd come in next. See, that's the mentality. That's the mindset, And you know something? Preflighting, FlightCheck helps the printer be able to do that. That's an exaggeration, the story I told, but that gives you an indication of the print buyer mindset in commercial printing.
Yep. I know a print buyer here at a large insurance company, and he would describe how he would get the print demands from the people internally, and it really was, like you said, it was a necessary evil. He didn't want to do it. He was getting pushed, and he would get stuff in PowerPoint and Word and all kind of stuff, and they try to make a PDF out of it, or they just send whatever they have, and it was just a lot of times very rushed, So
that's exactly true, and that hasn't changed
not much.
Right. And I'll tell you something: Preflighting has become a lifesaver for commercial printing.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no question about it. There'd be a lot of companies not in business today if there wasn't such a thing as Preflight and FlightCheck and this sort of thing.
Right.
And there are other competitive systems. But,
sure. Well, there's a lot of pre-flighting now, and that's great, and that helps a lot of larger printers with certain workflows and all that. But there's Bitstop, but of course FlightCheck is the tool to drop anything on and just get a quick overview, an X-ray, if you will, what's inside the file.
That is the tool of choice. That's what we teach at Cal Poly, and that's what other schools are teaching their students, preparing them to go into the industry.
Right. For the next question, I just want to make note of that. Markzware has a special program for universities and even training organizations where they'll supply the software for free, the FlightCheck for free, for educational purposes.
They are amazingly generous.
Yeah.
Unbelievably generous. So, as a matter of fact, we have a big conference coming up called Print Across America.
Yeah.
In a few weeks. And Patrick is donating software to anyone involved in that. All the schools, any business that's involved in that. So, yeah.
Right. We'll get back to that pre-flight and education in a second. But the next question, related 100% to the printers, is the importance of pre-flighting for creatives.
It all starts with the creatives. You make a mistake in design, in copy preparation. Okay, that mistake may not show up until bindery, until a job is ready to be folded and cut and this sort of thing. And a mistake at bindery often means starting all over again. Okay, binding and finishing, I should say.
Right.
It's imperative that designers, graphic designers, those who are preparing material for print, that they understand the importance of coordinating what they're doing with pre-press, what the printer does, and so forth. I'm talking about understanding fonts, making sure that the right font sets are available to the printer that the designer is using, understanding color, RGB versus CMYK, understanding percentage of color printed on different substrates, what you can do and what you can't do in terms of maintaining quality. Designers have to know this. They have to understand this, and they have to coordinate in every step of the workflow with the printer to make sure that they're in lockstep. One mistake can ruin an entire job.
Yep.
A misunderstanding on the part of design. And what's unfortunate is that a lot of schools are not focusing on the technicalities of coordinating with printers and the technology of printing that designers must know about. They focus a little bit more on aesthetics and this sort of thing. And the student and just the industry without knowledge of pre-flighting and the standards that need to be met in producing a job, well, they're not too effective in what they're doing.
That exactly right. Yeah, which leads us to the very next point I wanted to make was the importance of pre-flighting in education, because I didn't deal with you during that. I'll leave a link to this video below. It's called Preflight Basics for Graphic Designers, but it was a book that you co-authored with John Parsons called Introduction to Graphic Communication.
It's funny you mention it. I'll be right here. I didn't want to refer to something. You refresh my memory to do this. So this is
It's a great book.
There's a section on pre-flighting, and in preparing for this, I thought, let me refresh my memory what I wrote. And what we did is we put in a graph. This is the section on pre-flighting, and we put in a large graphic, which reads like this. The pre-flight process assumes that designers and print service providers are openly communicating. Okay? Right there.
Big assumption.
And that gets to your question about, creatives. It's extremely important that they are deeply involved in every step of the process. And coordinating with it.
Yeah. Communication in all business and workflow matters. Communication is
It's the key.
It's the key. It's the key. And the beauty about FlightCheck is, I think anyone can download a 30-day demo and see for themselves. It's educational in and of itself, because you drop a PDF or an InDesign file on there, and it's going to give you all the details of what's inside of it, and you're going to learn like what's DPI and what is effective resolution, and what is whatever it might be. There's just a host of information.
The list is long. I only mentioned a few: missing fonts, missing images, files in the wrong place, files that are not linked to a job.
Yep.
Screen and print fonts, the different color on screen versus coloring print.
Yep.
These are all, so resolution. You mentioned resolution. That's some scanning resolution is important. Understanding pixels and pixelization in terms of the right resolution in terms of preparing files. Trapping is another thing.
Overlapping. Yeah.
Very important for them to understand that. On and on and on.
Right. Yeah. And like say communication, if you're doing a 2-color print job and you have 4 colors used, well, there's going to be a problem. So you have to check these things against the job quote to make sure that everything's matching up. And that's what a printer has to ultimately do as the last line of defense. But the creatives, the designers, the publishers should be doing this as well before sending off, So, interesting. Okay, very good. Do you have any pre-flight stories or like print disasters that come to mind where pre-flighting saved the day?
Something? I have numerous. I would rather describe it this way. We don't have time to go through all these things, but let's break into it this way. Pre-flighting is part of what we call quality control.
Yeah, sure.
You wouldn't believe, or maybe you wouldn't hear in history, how many printers, even today, understanding the importance of getting things right in terms of being able to be profitable and satisfy customers, do not have either quality control department or quality control standards. Okay. Now, to make a very long story short, pre-flighting, or I can actually say FlightCheck, is like a quality control department. It is a quality control department. So you take a printer that does not have a quality control department, and they're also rushed, and they deal with the other thing that's very important. I'll get to preventive versus remedial maintenance. Okay, so we don't have time to reflect, think about the best way of doing things. They got to get the job out. Customer wants the job immediately. You take a printer like that, you educate a printer like that on pre-flighting. You give them the software, FlightCheck software. FlightCheck is quality control department. There it is, fill in the blanks.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Once you set up the ground controls, it's ready to go with it, and it comes set up already. So yeah.
I often teach my students and people in industry. I do a lot of seminars and workshops, things like consulting, the difference between remedial and preventive quality control. In this industry, in order to be profitable, you need to do preventive quality control. That means solving problems before the problem occurs, anticipating the problem. Okay?
Yep.
Remedial quality control is solving problems after the problem occurred, having to go backwards.
Yep.
Okay? And what pre-flighting does, it assists the printer in participating in preventive quality control, anticipating the problem, correcting what could possibly occur while rolling, and moving on. It's the only way.
Yep.
It's the only way that the system works.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. That's the best way to do it. Absolutely. Thank you. Here's an interesting one, maybe in this day and age. How does pre-flighting help companies stay or go green to help the environment?
Anything that a printer can do to reduce waste, that usually means using less paper, not wasting paper, less chemicals, less emission of volatile chemicals into the environment, using less chemicals contributes to saving the environment. So, anything like that, minimizing waste, minimizing polluting the atmosphere, using less instead of more in terms of completing the job properly helps the environment.
Yep, that's right. And that's what FlightCheck in and of itself will actually help you do as a printer or anybody using it actually, So yeah, very good answer. Well, I don't even need to ask this question. I had this one, but it's quite clear. Would you recommend pre-flighting for users? And, and how? But I'll ask it anyway.
Yes, I would, and I do. Advise, advise printers and publishers, excuse me. That's the first thing you look at the standards that they're using, how they're controlling their workflow, what are they doing to prevent problems from occurring, this sort of thing. And the best way to convince companies is to share real life stories and experiences about how costs are lowering costs, profits are increased, quality is improved, faster deliveries, and most important, more satisfied customers.
That's right. That's right. A customer, I think, rather be warned. Well, I know because I've heard that they'd rather be warned right away when they send the job in. There's a problem. Then 2 days right before, 2 days later on a Friday afternoon, right before they expect delivery on Monday, there's a problem. So that's not very customer friendly.
One of the other things that I want to mention, I have to mention it, is to have your viewers understand that pre-flighting comes out of the aerospace industry. Well, not the aerospace, the airline industry. Okay, and the idea of using pre-flight, the term pre-flighting for the printing industry dates back to 1990 when it was first used. And the thinking was that, on an airline, why is pre-flighting so important? One mistake can mean an airline going down, people getting killed.
Yeah.
And when you, let's say, look up the definition of pre-flighting and how it developed, you will always see used by the airline and the printing industry. It's come together.
Yeah.
And I understood this very early on. I got my PhD at the University of Pittsburgh in rhetoric and communication. They had a technical communication program dealing with aerospace, satellite transmission, and this sort of thing. And I figured I need to learn that because those technologies, microwave relays, aerospace technology, satellite transmission was just coming into the print industry. Okay. Wall Street Journal was the first to transmit using satellites and microwaves, then USA Today. And what they taught us really was the importance of what we're talking about right now in any industry. The importance of being cautious about errors and the implication of errors. In anything you do, in any industry, any field, and the printing industry is ideal to learn from what preflighting teaches as a way of doing business effectively, not only for your company, but for your customers.
Right. Right things right the first time. Absolutely.
Exactly.
And I just make a note. We have another interview from years ago, I think at a Siebold, where we interviewed Chuck Wagner, and Chuck was, he coined the term preflighting back when, like you were saying. Yeah.
Yeah. He was in the Ricky.
Yeah. 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 Very, very interesting. So, Harvey, thank you so very much for the time, the education, and the insights into preflighting.
My pleasure. Anytime.
And just so people know, you can download a free demo of FlightCheck over on Markzware.com. We'll leave a link below. And I'll leave a link for Harvey's information as well down below. And if you want to get in touch with him, you can see it there. So once again, thank you, Harvey. Have a great day.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Okay. Bye.